Hey, it's Rich on Planet PE, and today's video is all looking at technology in sport. So this is a Gcse PE paper 2 topic, and it's something that we've probably seen a lot more of because of the introduction of VAR into football this season. So let's get moving looking at that topic. So this season there have been examples all over the place of people who don't agree that maybe VAR should be in sport. So if those of you don't know, VAR is a video assistant referee which has been introduced into football and has had some quite controversial decisions because maybe football fans aren't ready for a yes or no answer. Whereas maybe in cricket, the fact that all we want to do is are they in, are they out, and it's maybe not as controversial, I should probably say, as the use of it is in football. So we're going to look at those sort of things. So the first thing I want to look at is the extended question that we're going to be focusing on, and then we're going to come back to it at the end of the session. So what we've got is this 6-mark question that was in the paper 2 2019 exam for AQA. So it says evaluate the use of technology in relation to its effects on officials and sport. So that was worth 6 marks. Now, in Gcse PE, you need to understand how technology is going to impact spectators, how it's going to affect officials, and how it's going to affect the sport overall, as well, obviously, as the players. So they're the sort of things that we're going to look at. If you're hanging around, then please like the video, please subscribe, all that sort of thing. But let's get into the nuts and crannies of this topic because it is quite an important one and also a relatively interesting one. So let's start looking at how technology is going to be used for the official, because that's probably the thing that's maybe made you think about staying with us for this long. So essentially, technology is used in sport to make decisions. So in sport, there is things like Hawkeye, which is used in cricket, and it's used in tennis, and it tracks the ball and basically says, is the ball in, is the ball out? In football, there's goal line technology, which actually uses the same system. It just tracks the ball, was it over the line, was it not? That's a pretty successful use of technology in sport. It helps the umpire, the referee, the official to make the correct decision. Now, when we then look at other uses of that, it starts to become a little bit more subjective because it's then looking at the video, but then somebody's interpretation of that video. So that's where things like VAR, that's where the television match official from rugby come in, and that's where we start to then have those grey areas where some people maybe do or don't agree with the decision. Now that's the sort of thing that you need to discuss in your exam. You need to say this is an advantage of it, it helps people to make decisions. You need to talk about the disadvantages, the fact that actually it takes forever. So in the England versus India cricket match, it took 3.5 minutes to make a decision that actually was pretty easy to make on the field, but the technology was there to back it up to make the right decision. The decision was correct, which is great, but it took a long time. Well, for a spectator, that has quite a big impact because as a spectator, you're in a situation there where you're having to wait and wait and wait, and therefore that might actually cause a little bit of disharmony in the crowd. And that's one of the reasons why VAR isn't actually shown on the screens in the ground, because people can get a little bit narky if they don't agree with the decision. So this idea that technology is going to be used to develop or make decisions or improve decisions is great. That's a real good side of it. And there are lots of other good things around it. But what's not so good is people's interpretation of what it should be like, because tradition maybe says that the referee is there to make the decisions. So are some referees maybe using the technology and relying on that too heavily, which is an AO3 point, by the way. And that's the sort of thing that you need to look at in your exam and the question we're going to look at later on. So what else can technology be used for? Well, it can be used to enhance performance. So you can use something like a heart rate monitor, for instance, to enhance your training because you can train in the correct training zone. Problem is, quite a few of those things are expensive. Again, that's a AO3 point. It's looking at the other side of the argument. You know, you look at professional footballers and they're using things like the GPS systems, that are the little tags in the back of their shirts. You'll see it in the England rugby team as well. And they're getting data about how far they've travelled, about how many sprints they've had in a game, what their heart rates are like, loads and loads of data. That's going to help improve their performance. It's going to improve the standard of the sport. But it's not available to everybody. So that sport isn't necessarily the same between amateurs and professionals, between people at the highest level, between people in the lower divisions, because of the cost implications of it. And that's one of the problems around technology in sport. It's blooming expensive, so not everybody can do it. So we can use technology for analysis. So we can use it to try and analyze the performance of players in their game, to then be able to then record them, to be able to then use a camera like we are now, to be able to show them what they did right, what they did wrong, and then improve their performance. Yet again, it's expensive. We can also use technology for rehab, for rehabilitation. So a player's performance could be improved and developed because of the rehab that is involved and the technology which is used. So I've been in an ice bath before, and some of you watched the videos previously where it was literally just like your recycling bin filled with ice. You compare that to some of the things that you see in top level sport where they're using, incredibly sophisticated and very expensive ways to recover, which use the same concept as an ice bath. You see people using things like oxygen tents, which is going to help their recovery. It's going to help them to be able to, maybe produce more red blood cells. Lots and lots of things that are going to help them rehab, but also improve their performance. Technology is also there to try and improve our safety, because you think about things like padding, about protective equipment, about helmets in sport. All of those things have been developed through technology and are there to try and improve people's safety. Again, the bad side about that, the negative side about it would be about cost. Is it available to everybody? What happens if they break? Are they able to replace? And those sort of things. So when you're talking about technology, they're the types of things that you would discuss. Anything about cameras, that is technology. So the fact that as a spectator, I can see instant replays on a screen. The fact that I can have a ref link in my ear where I'm going to be able to listen to the referee in rugby to be able to see and hear what is going on. The fact that we can watch sport from home are all about technology because they have been developed. But what we're going to look at in this question is about specifically how the officials are going to be using technology, and also how that affects the sport overall. So let's get looking at that 6-mark question. In any 6-mark question, you are going to be analysed in your skills to do what we call AO1, AO2 and AO3. So AO1, for those of you who don't know, are all about the knowledge. It's just about pure facts. AO2 is about the application of that terminology, so using sporting examples, being able to link your knowledge to something that matters. And then AO3 is about the evaluation, so thinking about how does it matter, what's the impact of those sort of things. So this question that we've got then, that we've discussed at the start, is evaluate the use of technology in relation to its effects on the officials and the sport. So if you want to pause the video, if you want to go and give this question a go, it may have been set for homework, for instance, in lockdown, go and do that, and we will then go through the sort of things that you need to put. It's not necessarily a perfect answer because obviously all this connective words. So let's have a look at that then. So we're going to need one AO1 point. Now that could be anything, such as saying that technology can be used to make decisions, that technology can be used for analysis. Any of those points that we would be able to say, as long as we say one of them, would get us 1 mark. We then need to apply what we've talked about to a sport or an activity. So the question said about the use of technology in relation to its effects on officials and the sport. So we've got to try and make sure that we're answering that question, because sometimes people go off on weird tangents. So in this question then, our AO2, our application of the technology in sport, could be things like using Hawkeye in tennis. The fact that the officials will be able to ensure that the decision is correct, that the sport is actually strengthened, that it's understanding of what is right and what is wrong, what's in and what's out in this situation is actually stronger, and it prevents wrong decisions. So that is one AO2 point. So in tennis, Hawkeye is used, which is then helped to prevent making wrong decisions. It tracks the ball. You could talk about exactly what it does, as you saw in the video earlier. We could also then talk about things like how officials will actually make use of the technology to make a decision. So for instance, the TMO, the television match official in rugby, they will ask questions simply of, is there a reason I can't give the try? They will listen to what's being said by the television match official. They'll also see it on the screen to be able to see what is going on. So again, it helps them to make the right decisions. So there, we've already got 3 of the 6 marks. Where students typically find it most difficult is in this final bit about the evaluation. So the evaluation here, you've got to think about how it affects the sport and the official. Well, we've said that it's going to be great because we can make some right decisions. Well, there's got to be some bad things about this. So things like the fact that the officials might rely too heavily on the technology. Some of you, I'm sure, have got incredibly frustrated about the assistant referees in football who only seem to flag very, very late now, and the game carries on, and then suddenly a flag goes up. Well, they're relying on the fact that, well, I've always got this backup of the VAR that's going to be able to, help me out. So, and that's actually affecting the flow of the sport. That's affecting how that sport kind of runs and what we expect of that. So again, that's another AO3 point. That the technology is actually changing how the sport is played. You could also talk about how the officials are being helped to come to the right decision, that they are making more correct decisions, which is then having a positive influence on the sport because therefore their decisions aren't negatively affecting the result of the game. When we look at it from the sports perspective, this is where we've got to think about it in a slightly wider context. So technology is great because it's going to help performers to get better. It's going to help the referees to make more decisions. It's going to have an impact lower down because it means that the sport maybe isn't exactly the same at the highest level to the lowest level. That's got to be a negative aspect. Also, the sport and its flow and the timing of it maybe slows down because we have to wait for those off-field decisions. So the fact that you'll see on the screen it says VAR pending, and then the crowd are having to wait, that can actually affect the game. It can affect the atmosphere. It can affect how that sport is being played. The fact that we can now also watch things on TV all the time, that the fact that technology is allowing that to happen, that might have a further impact, and the fact that spectators maybe don't go as often and things like that. So they're the types of points that you could make. There are other things, around technology. The fact that the sports can get better because facilities get better, because the coaching gets better, because we have a great understanding of what should be done because of technology. They're great, and they are also AO3 points because you are talking about the sport in a wider context. So they're the sort of things that you would need to talk about in a 6-mark question. So we've gone through use of technology, we've gone through some examples, and we've gone through the evaluation. So if you like what you've heard, guys, like and subscribe. We've got a Instagram account, and I'm just about to start a TikTok account. Bit nervy, but give us a like and a subscribe, and we will see you again really, really soon. Cheers.